This story begins at the scene of a multiple homicide. The police are investigating a house full of bodies and notice that the victims weren't trying to prevent a break-in, but were desperately trying to get out. In the basement, they find the body of an unknown woman, partially buried, with no apparent signs of violence, unlike the others. Since she has no identification, they name her Jane Doe. Meanwhile, Tommy and his son Austin are working in their family morgue, examining a burned man. Tommy teaches Austin not to assume the obvious. Even though the man died in a fire, his smoke-free lungs reveal that the actual cause of death was a blow to the head. He reminds him that their job is to find the secret each body holds. When they finish, Austin mentions he has plans with his girlfriend Emma to go to the movies. Emma shows up as a surprise and insists on seeing the morgue, despite Austin's reluctance. She's curious, especially about a small bell tied to a corpse's ankle. Tommy explains it's an old tradition from when it was hard to confirm death. They would tie bells in case the person woke up, and he uses them because he's a traditionalist. Emma asks about another covered body. Tommy reveals that, although it looked like suicide by gunshot, the poison in the man's system indicates he was already dead when he was shot. When Emma asks why, Tommy clarifies that they only determine the cause of death. The why is a job for the police. Just as they are leaving, Sheriff Sheldon arrives with Jane Doe's body. Austin decides to stay and help, understanding the urgency. Outside, he promises Emma it will only take a couple of hours. Emma, annoyed, asks if he's told his father yet that he plans to leave the morgue. Austin admits he hasn't, feeling that his father needs him, even though he doesn't want that future. The sheriff explains the girl was found in the Douglas's basement, with no ID or fingerprints, alongside 4 otherwise unconnected deaths. He needs the cause of death, COD, for the press by the next morning, demanding the autopsy be done that night. Tommy and Austin begin the autopsy, announcing the 4 stages as they turn on the recorder. They start with the external evaluation. They note that, although she appears to be in her 20s, her eyes are gray and cloudy, something that usually takes days to happen. However, the body shows no rigor mortis, no lividity, and her temperature is ambient. The oddities continue. Her waist is disproportionately small. Her wrists and ankles are fractured, with no external signs of trauma. They find peat, soil only found in the north, under her fingernails and in her hair. When checking her mouth, they discover her tongue was brutally torn out, and she is missing a molar. Tommy speculates it could be human trafficking, also noting deliberate cuts during the vaginal exam. They move on to the internal exam. When they make the first incision, the body bleeds profusely, which is impossible for a corpse that has been dead for some time. They confirm the small waist was deformed by the prolonged use of a corset, a garment from centuries ago. The internal organs are shocking. Her lungs are black and charred. Tommy points out that not even decades of smoking would cause that. That level of lung damage should correspond with third-degree burns on the outside, but her skin is intact. It's, as Tommy says, like finding a bullet in the brain with no entry wound. Her heart and other organs also show scarring, as if they had been stabbed. They conclude that if all this internal trauma were reflected externally, she would be disfigured. But Jane Doe looks perfect. Tommy mutters that no one inflicts this much damage unless the main goal is to make them suffer. Austin feels sick, sensing that something is wrong. They continue to the 3rd stage, the stomach. Austin tries to get his father to talk about his feelings, but Tommy avoids it. Inside the stomach, they find a flower, Datura stramonium, Jimson weed, a powerful paralytic. This flower also comes from the north. The radio announces a severe storm. Austin, nervous, suggests stopping, but Tommy refuses. He promised the sheriff the report tonight. They find a piece of cloth in the stomach, intact despite the acids. Inside it is the missing molar. Austin notices the cloth has Roman numerals and strange symbols etched on it. They deduce that someone pulled her tooth, wrapped it, and forced her to swallow it. Tommy suggests it could be a religious ritual. Austin reviews the torture, bound, tongue cut out, poisoned, forced to swallow the tooth, internal burns and cuts, and concludes it looks like a human sacrifice. Tommy remains anchored to logic. It's impossible to inflict that much damage without leaving a single external mark. He insists there must be a reason. The radio warns that the storm is worsening and they won't be able to leave tonight. Austin insists on leaving, but Tommy continues and separates the skin from the torso. They freeze. The inside of the skin is covered in the same archaic symbols from the cloth. As Austin shines a light on them, the lights burst, plunging everything into darkness. The radio turns on by itself, playing old music. With a flashlight, Austin sees that all the doors to the corpse drawers are open. Tommy, frightened, orders them to leave. They run to the exit, but a fallen tree is blocking the way. They go to the office to use the phone. Tommy calls Sheriff Sheldon, asking for urgent help, but Sheldon can barely hear him through the static before the call drops. In the silence, they hear the small bell Tommy showed Emma. They realize a corpse is moving down the hallway. They see a corpse's foot under the crack of the office door. The door shakes violently as something tries to get in, but they manage to block it with a filing cabinet. Austin, terrified, yells that Jane Doe is causing everything and that it started when they cut her. Tommy still searches for a rational explanation, insisting she is just a body. Tommy goes to the office bathroom to clean a wound. Austin sees a shadow behind the shower curtain and yells for him. Tommy pulls the curtain open, but nothing is there. An invisible force brutally attacks him and slams the door shut, trapping him. Austin struggles to open it while hearing the blows. When he finally gets in, the entity releases Tommy, who collapses, badly injured. Trembling, Tommy says he saw the figure, a charred body with Jane Doe's gray eyes. Tommy is convinced Austin was right. The findings were impossible, and so is this. They decide to return to the autopsy room. Upon arriving, they discover that the organs removed from Jane Doe are completely rotten. They plan to take her to the crematorium, believing that destroying her will stop her. But as they move the gurney, the crematorium door slams shut on its own. Austin, desperate, grabs an emergency axe and strikes the door. As he makes a hole, he sees the corpse with the bell approaching down the hall. He panics, dousing Jane Doe with flammable liquid while Tommy looks for a lighter. Tommy lights her. The fire explodes, but instead of consuming the body, the flames spread across the ceiling, burning all the evidence. After putting the fire out, they see in horror that Jane Doe is still intact, unburned. Unable to destroy her, they decide to flee using the elevator. They run to the elevator just as the doors open. They get in, but when they press the button, the power fails and the doors get stuck halfway closed. Trapped, they hear the bell approaching. Tommy readies himself with the axe by the opening. The figure arrives. Tommy strikes the figure's head with all his strength. They hear human groans of pain. The lights come back on. Austin looks on in horror. Tommy didn't kill a corpse, but Emma, who had returned just as Austin had asked her to. Tommy, paralyzed, pulls his devastated son into the elevator as the doors close. The elevator fails again, leaving them trapped between floors. Austin, in shock, blames himself, repeating that Emma shouldn't have been there. Tommy, shattered, tells him he couldn't have known. Then he opens up. He confesses that it's the same thing they told him about Austin's mother. He admits his wife was depressed and felt trapped, but he didn't know how to help her. He thought she could handle it alone because she seemed happy, but he should have seen the truth. He feels his mistakes led her to take her own life, and that Austin has suffered the consequences. As they talk, the cremation oven, ignited by the cat, roars, and thick smoke fills the building. Austin, regaining his composure, says they will suffocate if they stay. He realizes Jane Doe stopped them every time they got close to the truth. He reasons that if she hasn't killed them, it's because she wants something. The only way out is to go back to the autopsy room and finish the job. Perhaps discovering that how she died will reveal how to stop her. They get out of the elevator and move through the smoke-filled hallway, covering Emma as they pass. Tommy is attacked in the darkness. Austin helps him, and badly wounded, Tommy reaches the autopsy room leaning on his son. They proceed with the fourth stage, the brain. Despite his injuries, Tommy cuts into the skull. The brain looks normal, which makes no sense. Austin insists there must be something. Tommy takes a sample and puts it under the microscope. What he sees leaves him speechless. The brain cells are active. They are alive. They understand the truth. They didn't find the cause of death because she was never dead. Tommy understands that even after opening and burning her, an energy is keeping her alive. As they process this, Austin deciphers the cloth from the stomach. When folded, the Roman numerals form 1693, and the symbol refers to Leviticus 20:27. They look up the passage. A man or a woman who is a medium or who has familiar spirits shall surely be put to death. They connect the pieces, 1693, the peat from the north, the corset, It all points to the Salem witch trials in New England. Tommy reasons that those women were innocent, falsely accused. They conclude that Jane Doe was one of those innocent women, but instead of executing her, they tortured her mercilessly. The ritual they uncovered, cutting the tongue, burning her, stabbing her, paralyzing her, wasn't meant to destroy her. Accidentally, by torturing an innocent person, they created what they were trying to destroy. A real witch. The ritual left her trapped in her body, feeling eternal pain. Now she wants them to feel the same. It's her revenge. That's why she kept them alive, to inflict her suffering on them. Understanding this, Tommy approaches Jane Doe. He tells her he won't fight anymore and begs her not to hurt Austin, to take him instead. Immediately, Tommy's body undergoes a transformation. His wrists and ankles break, mirroring Jane's injuries. As Tommy writhes in pain, Jane Doe's wounds begin to visibly heal. Tommy, in agony, begs his son to kill him. Austin, crying, picks up a scalpel. His father nods. Devastated, Austin plunges the scalpel into his father's chest, ending his agony. The chaos stops. The power returns, and the radio switches on with Sheriff Sheldon's voice, saying they are outside and have cleared the tree. Austin, in shock, runs to the exit yelling, but the door is still jammed. The voice on the radio changes to his father's, singing the song from earlier that night. Austin turns and sees an apparition of Tommy watching him from the floor above. Frightened, he steps back, trips, and falls over the stair landing, breaking his neck. The next morning, the radio reports it's the fourth straight day of bright sunshine with no storm. The police arrive. The house is immaculate on the outside, but inside they find the bodies of Tommy, Austin, and Emma. Sheriff Sheldon, baffled and lacking a logical explanation, looks at the pristine body of Jane Doe. He orders her to be taken out of there to another jurisdiction. The final scene shows the van transporting the body. On the vehicle's radio, the same old song plays. As it drives on, the camera focuses on Jane Doe's foot. Her big toe twitches slightly. Just before the end, a small bell is faintly heard.